Welcome to the deep dive. Today, you and I are taking a culinary look at the little snail.
That's the one in Piermont, Sydney, right? Moved from Bondi and Parramatta.
Exactly. It's billed as modern Australian, but, with a really strong French influence.
Mm-hmm. And we've got quite a bit to dig into here.
We really do. We've got diner reviews from TripAdvisor, the actual menus, lunch, dinner, even gluten-free.
Ah, good. And there was a Groupon deal mentioned.
Yep, a Groupon offer, details on parking nearby, which is always practical.
Definitely.
And even a bit of a history lesson on bouillabaisse, which seems to be a feature there.
Okay, interesting. So our mission then is to really get a feel for the whole experience at the Little Snail.
Precisely. The food, the drinks, the atmosphere, what it's actually like to eat there based on all this info.
Right, we're sort of building a picture beyond just, reading the menu items.
Yeah, using those firsthand accounts, the restaurant's own descriptions, and even the background of some key dishes.
Sounds like a good plan. Should give us a pretty rounded view.
Okay, so let's dive straight into the main event, the food. Looking through these menus, that French connection is, well, it's obvious.
How so?
Well, escargot de Bourgogne pop up everywhere. Lunch, dinner.
Ah, the classic snails and garlic butter.
Exactly. A dozen of them. And the TripAdvisor reviews, people seem to love them. Mentioned quite a lot as a great way to start.
That makes sense. If it's on all the menus, it's probably a signature dish they do well.
Yeah.
Reliable.
Yeah. And speaking of signatures, you mentioned the bouillabaisse earlier.
I did, yeah. Someone on TripAdvisor was raving about it, said they needed more bread just to soak up all the broth.
Haha, that's usually a good sign.
It really is. High praise.
But this bouillabaisse, it's not just any old fish soup, is it? When we looked into the history.
Oh, yeah, the Marseille origins. It's pretty specific, traditionally.
Right, like you're supposed to use certain fish rascasse, sea robin, European conger, kind of bony ones, apparently.
Mm-hmm. And those Provençal herbs, saffron, and the way it's served.
Yeah, the broth comes first with roux, that garlicky, peppery mayo.
That's the one. And sometimes the fish is served completely separately.
So how does the little snail describe theirs?
Well, their menu calls it a traditional French seafood soup of mussels, fish fillets, and prawns, cooked in seafood broth, served with garlic baguette.
Okay, so mussels, fish fillets, prawns. Not necessarily the traditional bony fish, then?
Seems like maybe an adaptation. Acknowledging the tradition, but perhaps making it more approachable for diners here, using fillets and prawns.
Yeah, that makes sense. Still sounds good, though.
Absolutely. But it's interesting to see that slight shift from the sort of historical charter definition.
So beyond those two big French hitters, what else is on offer? Starters.
Quite a mix, actually. You've got salt and pepper squid, king prawns with lemon mayo and sweet chili. A bit more contemporary, maybe.
Yeah, sounds less traditionally French, more modern Australian, perhaps.
And a salmon roulade with herb cheese, too. Lighter option.
Okay. And mains. What are we looking at?
Good variety. Beef tenderloin, lamb loin, tassie salmon, chicken cordon bleu.
Cordon bleu. Definitely French.
Yep. Veal tenderloin, too. And then, interestingly, kangaroo fillet.
Kangaroo. Okay, that's definitely leaning into the Australian part of modern Australian.
For sure. And they recommend it rare, served with a Dijon mustard and honey bordelaise sauce.
Oh, wow. Okay. Bordelaise is classic French, but with kangaroo. That's a real fusion dish.
Exactly. It shows how they're blending those techniques with local ingredients. It's quite clever, I think.
And you mentioned a gluten-free menu. Does it have similar stuff?
It does, yeah. Lots of overlap, which is great to see. They seem quite conscious of catering for that.
Good. Any vegetarian options? Sometimes they can feel a bit like an afterthought.
They have a vegetarian risotto sweet peas, marinated mushrooms, gran padano. It's on the main menu, and the gluten-free one.
Okay, so a dedicated option, not just, pasta primavera again.
Right. And what's really useful, one source mentioned, they're quite flexible.
Flexible how?
Like they can do dishes without sauce or with different sauces, or serve sauce on the side if you have allergies or preferences.
Oh, that's really good to know. That level of accommodation makes a big difference.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've got the food sorted. What about drinks to go with it? Wine.
Yep. The list gives us a couple of examples. There's French white, a Clos Bagatelle Muscat de Saint-Jean-de-Minervois from 2023.
Muscat. Okay, often a bit aromatic, sometimes sweet.
Yeah. The notes mention exotic fruits, DLDs, rose. They suggest it as an aperitif.
Nice. Something to sip while you decide on food.
Exactly. And then there's a sparkling, an Australian one. Rothbury Estate Cuvée Sparkling Envy.
Ah, a local drop. What's that like?
described as crisp, refreshing green apple and melon flavors.
Sounds like a pretty versatile bubbly. Good with seafood, maybe?
Yeah, or just as a celebration starter. It shows they're thinking about different pairings. A French option, an Australian option.
Right. And didn't the Groupon deal mention drinks too?
It did. That's where we saw some cocktail specifics. It included a complimentary drink option.
Like what?
Either a passion fruit Mai Tai, white rum, passion fruit liqueur, juices.
Okay, tropical.
Or, for a non-alcoholic choice, a Planter's Punch mocktail. Again, fruity.
So they're definitely pushing cocktails as well, not just wine.
Seems that way.
Mm-hmm.
And their full list apparently includes things like a French martini, Clover Club.
Classics.
Yeah, but also more modern stuff like a Midori Splice and a Bodhi iced tea.
Midori Splice. Haven't heard that one in a while.
Yeah. So quite a range there too. Something for most tastes, I'd imagine.
So if you put it all together, you've got these French techniques, Australian ingredients popping up like the kangaroo, a mix of French and Aussie wines, plus cocktails and mocktails.
Yeah, it feels like they're aiming for a broad appeal, really. Honoring the French side, but definitely in a contemporary Sydney setting.
And those set menus you mentioned?
Right.
Lunch for $48, dinner for $69, both 3 courses.
Right. The reviews suggested those offer good value, a way to try a few things without going fully a la carte.
Makes sense. Although we should probably mention pricing stability and changes.
Ah, yes. The practical side. What do we find there?
The lunch menu price, the $48, is apparently stable until January 2027.
Wow, that's quite a long way out.
Yeah. But the dinner price, the $69, is expected to increase sooner. No specific date mentioned, though.
Good to know. And anything else on the practical front? Location we know is Permont. Parking.
Nearest is Wilson Parking at 100 Murray Street, Darling Harbor. But, important point, the restaurant doesn't validate parking.
Okay, so factor that cost in if you're driving. Open hours.
Lunch and dinner, 7 days a week, which is pretty good.
Any closures?
Yeah, specific dates, January 1st and 2nd and December 25th and 26th. But they don't close on other public holidays.
Ah, but there's often a catch with public holidays.
There is a 10% surcharge on the total bill on public holidays.
Standard enough.
And specifically for the Groupon vouchers, there's an extra $5 per person surcharge on public holidays, too.
Okay, so double check if you're using a voucher on one of those days. Any other potential extra costs?
A couple of small things.
Yeah.
If you want an entree served as a main course size, it's an extra $7.
Fair enough.
And any other extra requests are charged at $5. Pretty transparent about it.
Yeah, seems reasonable. And they cater for functions too, right? Up to 200 people.
That's right. Group bookings are definitely an option.
So quite versatile.
Okay. Let's try and pull the key threads together then. What are the main takeaways for you?
Well, clearly a strong French foundation, especially with things like the escargot and the bouillabaisse, even if the bouillabaisse is maybe their own interpretation.
Right. That blend is key.
Definitely. Then there's the variety in the mains, catering to different tastes, using those French techniques, but also bringing in Australian elements like the kangaroo.
And the effort for dietary needs, the gluten-free menu, the flexibility with sauces, that stood out.
Big plus. And the drinks echo that blend French and Australian wines, cocktails from classic to contemporary.
Yeah, and the practical stuff. Puremont location, parking nearby, but paid. Open most days. Set menus for value.
But watch out for those public holiday surcharges, especially with Groupon.
Good point. So thinking about all this, that blend of modern Australian and classic French, it makes you consider a dish like the bouillabaisse again.
How do you mean?
Well, its origins are so rooted in resourcefulness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Marseille fishermen using whatever fish was left over, maybe not the prime cuts. It was about fresh, local, available ingredients.
Absolutely. Born from necessity and local conditions.
So how does that history connect with a modern restaurant experience? We still value freshness, seasonality, local ingredients, but it's presented very differently now, more refined, perhaps.
That's a great point.
Right.
Does the story behind the dish, its humble beginnings, still resonate when you're eating a beautifully presented version in a nice restaurant? Does knowing that history change how you taste it?
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, what other dishes on menus everywhere have these fascinating, maybe surprising histories hiding behind familiar names, stories we just don't know about?
Definitely something to chew on. It adds another layer to the whole dining experience, doesn't it? Thinking about where the food actually comes from, historically and culturally.
It really does. Food for thought, indeed.